So in this video, I just want to go over my environment, my text editor, some of the extensions I'll be using, and also some of the resources for this course and stuff we'll be using in the course. So this is the repository for the final project. It's under my GitHub account, Brad Traversy, and it's ProShop MERN. So you can come here, you can see all the files for this project. And also if you go to the commits, what I tried to do is do a git commit after every video. There were a couple times where I forgot, so there's like a few videos worth of code in some of these commits, but for the most part they match up with each video. So for instance, when we created the order pay reducer and action, so if you wanted to see the exact code that was added, you can come here and you could see what was added or what was removed. So that should be helpful to you if something's, if you're messed up with something and you need to see the final code. So I'm using Visual Studio Code for my text editor. Chances are a lot of you are using this. It's very popular in the web dev community, and I would highly recommend it. But if you want to use like Sublime Text or Atom or some kind of IDE, so anything that you use that you're used to, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to use VS Code. It's just what I use and what I usually suggest, and of course it's cross-platform. Next, you need to have Node.js installed on your machine. If you don't, just go to nodejs.org, and I would suggest grabbing the latest version. We're actually going to be using ES modules on our back end, which is the import syntax. So it's the same syntax as the front end with React. And after version, I believe it was 14.6 of Node.js, you don't have to add the experimental modules flag. So I would definitely suggest using at least 14.6. But if you grab the current version, that would be the best option. So the next thing that you should have installed is the Git version control system. I would suggest making commits throughout the course. It doesn't have to be after every video, but whenever you feel you see fit. We will be needing to use Git at the end to deploy to Heroku. So you can download it at git-scm.com, or you can install it with Homebrew on a Mac, and there's other ways to install on Linux and stuff. So Postman is an API tool or an HTTP client that we're going to use to test out backend endpoints or backend routes before we actually integrate them into our front end, into React and into our Redux Stateflow. So you can download this at postman.com. And then I also want to just give a shout out to my partner on this course, Basir. So he had a huge hand in the project for this course, and he's actually going to be covering the Q&A section on Udemy. So if you have a question, if you run into some issues, and you leave a message in the Q&A, either Basir or myself will get back to you, and he's more than capable of handling the Q&A. He actually specializes in e-commerce with React and Redux and Express. And he also has a YouTube channel at Coding with Basir, so if you want to give him a subscribe. All right, so let's jump into VS Code, and I just want to kind of go over the extensions and the settings that I'm using, just in case you want to follow along to a T and you don't want to run into any issues where our environments don't match up or something's happening with my screen that's not happening with yours. So as far as extensions, nothing spectacular. I'm using this ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native snippets, and basically I just use this to quickly generate React components. So we have shortcuts for lots of different things, imports, exports. I don't use it too much for that though. I basically just use it for these here. So to generate React components, if you want a class component, you can do RCC. What we'll be using for the most part is the React arrow function right here, RAFC, so React arrow function component export. I like to use this syntax for my components. All right, so I have that. Bracket pair colorizer is something I'd recommend, but definitely isn't needed. It just kind of organizes things visually because it colorizes your curly braces, your brackets, your parentheses, and just makes everything nice and neat. And you can see, where the curly braces end. You can see these are purple, the nested ones in here are blue. So I've used that for years. This auto rename tag, so this works with HTML and JSX in React. Basically, if you change the beginning tag, it's going to change the ending tag as well automatically. So you'll see that happen on my screen, and that's why. And I would suggest adding this to VS Code. Let's see what else. I'm also using the JavaScript ES6 code snippets. I don't use this too much. It's basically for just console logs. You can just do CLG enter and it will print out console log. So not something you need, but it's something that I do use. And then lastly, I have Prettier installed, which is a code formatter. Now, as far as like ESLint and setting up linting, I'm not going to do that. I just want to keep everything kind of bare bones. But I do use Prettier to actually remove semicolons. I don't use semicolons, so I set it to delete them if I accidentally put one in. You can do the other way around as well. Also for single quotes, and I'll show you my Prettier setup in a second. But I do use that. So now I'm just going to go to my settings here. And one thing I do use is the save on format. So if we search for save, or I said that backwards, format on save. So you'll see I have this checked, and basically what that means is if I edit something, so let's just open up some file here. So if I have this like over here and it's not formatted nicely, when I save, it automatically puts it back. Also, I'm not using semicolons, so if I have a semicolon and I save, it just gets rid of it. If I have double quotes, so if I choose, to use double quotes here and save, it automatically changes it to single. And where I have that configured is in settings, and then if we search for Prettier, so my setup is not too crazy. I just have JSX single quote checked, and I have semicolons unchecked, and I have single quote checked. And then my tab width, I'm using 2. And if we take a look at my settings file, if we do Command-Shift-P and settings and open the JSON file here, this is just all my settings. My font size, which is obviously beefed up so you guys can see it, the terminal font size, Prettier single quote set to true, so nothing crazy. I know some people have these insane VS Code configurations, but I don't do that because I do a lot of videos and courses, so I like to try to keep things as bare bones as possible, but still using the rules that I like no semicolons and single quotes, stuff like that. So that's pretty much it for my setup. So it's up to you on what you want to use. I know a lot of people use semicolons. I just stopped using them maybe 3-4 months ago, but that's it. So in the next video, we'll jump right in and get started on our project.